Hey there. I'm John Hayes, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the Founders Trust podcast. Today, we're discussing how startups can successfully plan and execute an initial product launch. I spoke with Gerald and Colton Horn, the founders of Breinfuel, one of the hottest startups in Chicago that just launched its premium line of cerebral beverages. Want to know what that means? Stay tuned for their pitch to kick off our conversation. Gerald, Colton, and I then discuss their approach to product development and branding to launch a successful consumer product. This was one of my favorite conversations with some of the most energetic founders I know. Honestly, these guys just know how to get it done. So I'm really excited to share their insights with you. As always, stick around to the end of the episode for the one tool you should be using anytime you're launching a new product launch or beta release. So let's jump right in. Today's Startup Spotlight is brought to you by Savier. Savier takes a personalized approach to helping entrepreneurs create a clear path to growth. Through knowledge, coaching, and marketing services, Savier helps entrepreneurs and small business owners apply marketing to achieve their business goals. At Savier, our goal is to empower entrepreneurs to achieve marketing success. Check them out at Savier, that's savvyeur.com today. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Founders Trust podcast. I'm so excited to be able to bring you two very special guests, two people who are doing awesome things in the startup space here in Chicago, and that's Gerald and Colton Horn of Breinfuel. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I spoke with several people who could not be more excited to listen to this episode when it comes out. So really, really pumped to learn more about Breinfuel, your launch, and overall just learn how everything's going with the product release. So thanks so much again for hopping on tonight.
Thank you. We're excited to be here big time.
Absolutely. FI is a big part of this brand. So it's nice to be able to reconnect with you, John.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the Founder Institute pays dividends for everyone once again. And, can't thank Jason Jacobson and everyone enough for connecting us. But guys, let's hop right into it. Let's start with a little bit of a pitch on Breinfuel and everything you've been working on.
Let's go. So Dr. Gerald Horn, that's my background as a physician and pharmaceutical science guy. I did develop several products on the pharmaceutical side. One became an industry-leading eye whitener. That's an interesting story to me because it took me 3 years of running around with everyone telling me, we don't need an eye whitener. We have all these great Fortune 50 companies selling red reducing drops, etc. And we literally just killed it. Licensed it to Bausch Healthcare, became Lumify. It's done well over, almost 100 million in sales a year. And it's just a lesson to me. Every sector is crowded. You got to have a differentiating product. So that's my background. And I brought that into developing Breinfuel. And it started out me as a pharmaceutical person using caffeine and tinkering around with it. And I was really surprised that the sector, while it's so well branded, there's three sectors here. There's the coffees, there's the nootropics, there's the energy drinks. They all treat caffeine as if it was energy and fuel, and it's a stimulant. So when you take it with 0 calories and you take it with 55 grams of carbs, you're actually telling your brain and body to kick into gear and you're gumming up the system. And at some point, you outstrip the support caffeine needs. That's where all the side effects are coming from. So let's go to the next slide, Colton. So basically, it's a series of 4 blends. They're really nootropic blends. Every ingredient here means it has a cognitive quality. We take green coffee beans and green tea because they've evolved to have more than just caffeine. They have incredible antioxidants for a reason. We added fuels that will scale. Short release, medium release, long release. They won't spike your glucose levels. We added other really key ingredients here so your brain and body can work in synergy. And we wound up with incredible focus and a performance enhancing form of energy that people are not even used to. It's a little bit like what we did to coffee, in my opinion, is what coffee does to energy drinks. There's just a lot of good stuff in here to get the best out of caffeine. And when that caffeine is done, the powerful antioxidants keep your brain kind of cool. So you stay focused for a very long time when you drink a Breinfuel. It's hard to tire out your brain. Colton?
Yeah, I'd love to dive into the go-to-market strategy and how we're supporting it with marketing. But first, while we're on this slide, just wanted to point out the flavors at the top. When you look at this ingredient set, and the number one priority for us was sourcing the best ingredients and creating the best possible benefits. But it was really amazing that we were able to get into the flavors that we did. So Thrive Ice, Limitless Berry, Alpha Punch, Victory Bliss. That's a light citrus, mixed berry, fruit punch, and peach mango, respectively. We were very, very pleased with how those turned out. But now let's get into how we went to market. We launched on December 14th, so just about 6 weeks ago. That's our D2C component of the launch. I'll talk about 3 sections here of the launch. So on the D2C side, we launched on our Shopify site. That's Breinfuel.com. We are available online now. So in the first 6 weeks, we've done about $17,000 in sales. We just eclipsed 400 orders yesterday, and we've had pretty good traction around the country in 33 states so far. Now, that's a very organic community. It's a lot of customers that are personally connected to us, personally connected to our team. But nevertheless, we've been really, really thrilled with the feedback, the buzz, enthusiasm, and really positive reviews of how people have been receiving the product, as well as a particularly high reorder rate for how early and young we are as a company. That's been really good to see. As far as the next stage of the launch that I'll talk about, DM Fulfillment is a partner of ours that serves as sort of a hybrid of a 3PL and an online distributor. So their role for us is they actually placed 4 purchase orders pre-launch for about $75,000. And they actually just launched for us on Amazon. So they manage all of our Amazon page, the A+ optimization and things like that. And then throughout 2021, they will also be selling for us on Walmart.com, Target.com, and some other online channels. So that really helps us because it allows us to keep our focus on our own D2C side on Shopify, as well as the other parts of our launch. And then finally, on the retail side, we have a really, really great opportunity that I wanted to make sure we talked about in this podcast is our CVS pilot coming up in a few weeks. So CVS actually sees us as a potentially really great fit in their health hub locations. There's 500 health hubs in the country right now. By the end of this year, there will be up to 1,500 health hubs. So they're going to be running a pilot test with us right near their headquarters in Massachusetts, Rhode Island area, where they're going to be putting us in 10 health hub stores. They're allowing us to have a really nice case stacker there in the middle of the store. And they're going to be measuring the velocity. And based on how we do there, they're going to make a strategic plan to scale us, regionally or eventually nationally into the rest of the CVS health hub locations. So that's the update as far as the go-to-market. And then the way that we're supporting it with marketing, there's kind of 2 layers that I'll talk about here quickly, the macro side and the micro side. The micro side I like to call the guerrilla side. But as far as macro and some bigger influencers that we've partnered with, on the right here, you can see Thomas DeLauer is a keto and intermittent fasting and fitness YouTube star, but more than just being a YouTube star, he's also a really brilliant mind when it comes to nutrition, business performance, and things like that. He's a really great partner for us. He has 2.5 million YouTube subscribers and 3.5 million total followers across his channels, and he's already started making some really great content featuring Breinfuel too. Him and my dad actually are working on an ebook right now, which is going to be really, really great when it drops. And then on the left here on the top, you can see Randy Costa is an up-and-coming UFC fighter. He's 6-1 in the bantamweight division that we've recently engaged. And he'll be drinking Breinfuel throughout his training and even before his fight on March 6th in UFC 259. Poker is a very, very interesting fit for a product like ours, where you need to be at the top of your game focused for sometimes 6, 8, 10 plus hours. So we partnered with 2 of the biggest names in poker. If you're somebody who follows poker, you've probably heard the name Phil Hellmuth. He's won 15 World Series of Poker championships, by far the most of all time. And he's a really very valuable partner for us. And he's going to be drinking Breinfuel throughout the World Series of Poker and some other poker events. And then Jonathan Little he runs pokercoaching.com, which is the #1 training software for poker. So that's a great lane for us as well. And then we're looking into the NFL and some other lanes as well as far as sports and fitness influencers. We also, on the micro, or like I said, guerrilla side, as far as getting eyes on the brand and the kind of that top of funnel awareness, what's really important for us at this early stage is UGC, user generated content. So we've been recruiting basically content creators to make authentic content with how they're using the product and how they're incorporating it into their daily routines. So these are just some of many examples of people in our target demographic, doing activities that are part of our archetypes and speaking about their experience on social media. We also have an ambassador program that's boots on the ground to drive sales that we just kicked off. So you can see that we're supporting the launch in this micro and macro way simultaneously. And then, Dan, I'll turn it back to you for fundraising.
So we started out with an angels round, raised about $820,000, and we're well over $1 million at this point. Basically, we're looking for strategic investors and the right valuation to scale this up properly. And, things are going really well. There's no issue for us right now on the funding side. I'm comfortable to bootstrap the company for a while because we just launched. We have so much traction. I see the valuation really scaling up soon. So we are, of course, interested in strategic investors, people who can help us out in some way, shape, or form that might be interested in the company. But there's plenty of time. You can hopefully enjoy our journey, and as we scale up, there's always going to be opportunity. So I really think one of the most important things to me in developing this product is I'm a pharmaceutical nerd. I consider Breinfuel something I created as my baby. To me, it's not a drug, it's a CPG product, but I developed it like a drug. There is so much good stuff intended to be there to kill oxidative stress, which is the #1 cause of all our health problems, that one infinite universe, one infinitely seeking brain defines life to me. It's what our bodies and brains are trapped dealing with. All our stress comes from choice. And honestly, in my personal life, nothing combats the challenge of day-to-day life like this product has. From a performance, energizing perspective, for making your brain really feel good, less stressed out. So I just think Breinfuel has an opportunity to be special.
Guys, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, this is absolutely electric stuff. And honestly, this has been, from my perspective, one of the most successful early stage startup launches in Chicago and the Midwest, I'd say at least the last 6 months. And I know everyone's facing a difficult pandemic situation. And despite that, you guys have done terrific on both the sales side, getting traction. I mean, the partnerships that you laid out there are phenomenal. Getting a pilot with CVS is incredible. And we'll walk through a little bit more and how you were able to kind of plan and execute this launch in a second. But I just want to say thank you again for sharing, because I think this model, it's very difficult to launch any product, but it's especially difficult to launch something that's direct to consumer. And when you have to source ingredients like you have and produce 4 incredible flavors. So I give you guys a ton of credit. This is truly one of the hottest launches of the year. And I have no doubt that you'll find the strategic investors to help you get to that next level. And even if you don't in the short term, even if you hold off and wait and keep bootstrapping, I think you're more than prepared for a very successful run here. So kudos to both of you, and really excited to see Breinfuel's continued traction.
Appreciate that, John.
Yeah, totally, John. We're very, very, very excited.
I'm excited just to have a chance to sit down with you guys and really understand how you were able to launch this quickly and this effectively. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's talk about your product development, right? Because you can't have a launch without product development. And what did that process look like for you on the development side to really get to this point? And how did you know that the product and timing were right to bring Breinfuel drinks to the marketplace?
So let me go with the backdrop, right? The backdrop of the story is like developing any pharmaceutical. Every ingredient in a drug has to be played against every other one, right? There's a balance, there's a ratio. If you change one thing, you change the other. And so when I started playing with caffeine, it started out with a bunch of physiologic theories. Caffeine's a stimulant. It needs low glycemic fuel. And then it needs antioxidants. It needs the right kind. One has to be lipophilic for your brain. One has to be water soluble. I played with these ideas, and I had a great litmus test, 11-hour surgery days, that when I was doing surgery, I was fine. Come home after dinner, I wasn't very social, So once I realized the drop-off that I was used to experiencing was gone, I had some really well-known surgeons that were with me on the pharma side have the same experience. Because we are not interested in wasting our time or anybody else's time. But then we thought this is actually something really good for people. And so that meant we had done a lot of development work over a year and a half. I gave it to a flavor house early in the pandemic, and they scaled up all the things I'm not good at. John, you would not want me to cook you dinner. You don't want me to make you a cake. And that's what our flavor tasted like. I could not figure out how to flavor Breinfuel. I could figure how to make it work well. And our flavor house crushed it for us. So basically that got us something really resonating. We found a really great CMO from the point of view of branding our product. We want it to have its own DNA. It's not an energy drink. It's not coffee. It's a hybrid. And I feel like we hit that by getting out of a can, getting a unique logo design. So everything sort of fell into place for us to produce this product. And we found a great co-man in Wisconsin who loves us, gives us, a little love and a little time and attention. And it's just come together.
Terrific stuff. And honestly, if it's, validated with surgeons, medical professionals, I think that's, it's a quality product, right? Those you and your colleagues obviously aren't messing around. So that's certainly a great testament to the quality of the product itself. And don't worry on the flavor side. I can barely even make cereal taste good. So don't worry about that. But,
yeah, you didn't want me to make the flavor. We found a place a lot better than me.
Well, that's what they specialize in, right? That's their go-to. So, once you knew that the product itself was ready to go, how did you think about developing, the comprehensive launch plan, and what did that timeline really look like to get everything prepped?
Yeah, so there's a few components to that, and there's a somewhat of a difference between a CPG space and the tech space when it comes to getting the MVP out there. With a beverage launch like this, especially a disruptive product, you really want to put your best foot forward, right, while still making your timeline. And so the first priority for us was, how are we going to finalize the product? And some of the things my dad just spoke to, as far as finding the flavor house, going down there and testing the different flavor options, finding the right ingredient vendors, finding the right co-man who can make a product like this, right? This is not an easy ingredient set to put into a solution, but we were able to pull it off. Finding a 3PL partner to store and fulfill the product. So those were kind of like the back-end logistics priorities that we had to sort through first. And then on the other side, it's internally, how are we building the team to actually, scale the company up? And we were fortunate, as I think my dad mentioned, we brought in a really brilliant CMO, great brander, who has tons of experience in the beverage space with energy drinks, with Coca-Cola, et cetera. And also Jason Jacobson, actually from FI, introduced us to our vice president of sales, who has 20 to 30 years of experience in the beverage space and the director of sales type roles. And so he was able to come in and open up a lot of relationships that ultimately led to opportunities like the CVS pilot and things like that. And then in addition to those two leaders, we also have a team of really committed contractors. Some people that are younger, that are hungrier, that are putting in really long hours, that are, really committed to growing this brand and that are really part of it from day one. So that was a big part of scaling the team, getting our working rhythm and efficiency down, using softwares like Asana to track all of our tasks and things like that. And then also, one thing to keep in mind is we were originally, when you talk about a timeline, we were anticipating launching in September. Obviously, with the COVID supply chain, it was very difficult to pull that off, and we ultimately postponed to mid-December. But that was a huge win for us, because it allowed us to have an extra 2 months of really perfecting our brand. Not that it's perfect, but really tweaking and improving the brand, really honing in on our messaging, becoming a lot more clear, a lot less scattered. So that was really big. And then the last thing I would say is, as I mentioned before, so much of our customer base is organic, and it's so many people that are personally connected to us. And that part of the reason why that converted really quickly is because we've been engaging our organic following for months. Like even in the summer, before our brand or packaging was even finalized, we were already posting very frequent content on our social media channels, building up for the launch. And that little bit of delay was just enough to get people's interest peaked, just enough to get them excited and waiting for the product. And once we dropped, product actually delivered to people on Christmas Eve. So it was sort of a great omen for good things to come heading into the new year.
Oh, absolutely. Well, perfect timing, right? I mean, I can't think of a better Christmas gift for you guys than to have your products ready to rock and roll and in people's hands.
Right.
For the holidays. So, Colton, you touched on a really interesting point there on timing, and that the slight delay actually worked in your favor, right? And sometimes, there are two very common scenarios. One in which people set a deadline, are nowhere close, and it just becomes like a rolling deadline, right? It just keeps going, and there's no real accountability there, which is one issue. But the other issue is people set a deadline, but when they get to that point, they feel like they have to launch, regardless of whether they're truly ready. So, in that vein, when did you guys feel like you were really ready, or how did you feel like it was the right time in terms of, you had set a deadline, obviously got pushed back a little bit due to unforeseen circumstances. But was there a certain moment when you knew, okay, we're really ready to rock and roll and bring this to the market, or was it more of a gradual progression?
Let me take that, because while I do agree with Colton, the tech side, your MVP is different than on the CPG side. I think there's something similar here. The product was ready. The product was already in finished form for a while now. What was left? We got to find and nail down our best fit. You can't do that sitting there on the sidelines, right? You've got to get out there. And so we're really learning a lot right now about what our best fit really is. And guess what else? You think you can scale your COGS before you launch? You're kidding yourself. I can't even really do a vendor search and change the whole vendor mix when I already know I have a great, based on our own internal POC testing, we have a great set of ingredients and vendors. I need to do due diligence on that as I adjust the COGS. So there's a huge opportunity to us to hit a sweet spot. Make the flavors super great, even little tweaks that we've done. We want to get the velocity, right? So we are going to work at scaling and finding the best price point for it's a premium product. We don't want to start low. We're going to find the sweet spot, and we're going to be able to sell at the sweet spot. And there's no reason to rush. I don't want to get into every store in CVS. Believe me, I don't want to turn down opportunity, right? But I want people to know more about this product so we can scale it. And I want to hit the right price point. I want to know who our best customers are. I want to know what they respond to. And so we've learned a lot already. And that's sort of the goal right now. Walk before we run and really get ready.
It's very apparent from speaking with both of you that you have such a grasp for the process. And I think the process is really what throws people off, right? Because it is comprehensive. There's the product side, the marketing side, sales, fulfillment, logistics, etc. And that overwhelms people. And it's such a testament to, both of you that you have such a grasp for the process. And I think as part of that, it sounds like at different points you've really focused on the messaging. And Colton, I believe you mentioned it, but a product launch is really that first impression, right? And the first impression is really important, and it leaves a certain message or a certain taste, no pun intended, with your target customers. So how have you thought about that messaging, and what was that first impression that you really wanted to get across to your customers, both through your organic network and for people who maybe weren't previously associated with you but have started testing the product?
I'd say we wanted to walk a line. This is a unique, differentiated product. We don't want to be starting a new category, because it really doesn't. It's an evolution. And I think in reality, any real progress in the CPG or pharma side, either one, is an evolution from what came before it. If you took nootropics, if you took energy drinks, and you took coffees, you can find some of Breinfuel in all of those. We learned from everybody that came before us. So I'd like to think that this is a product that is an evolution to something else, right? And I think learning from the past is important, and not trying to be everything to everybody, even though we're excited about Breinfuel. The truth is, if you're sitting in a rocking chair and you're my age and you don't do much all day and you drink a Breinfuel, it'll taste fine. But if you're really grinding and you got to stay up till 11 at night working on something, the more you need it, the more you're like, how come my brain is still in the game? So we need to find people that really want to scale this. We're doing a 100 subject study on 6 cognitive values measured in a very scientific sense to get some really quantified information about this product. Because in The CPG space, we're all stuck with marketing and branding, and there's a fine line because it's important, but it can't just be hype. It's got to be real. I want Breinfuel to be real. So we're on that journey.
No, it's certainly, it's a very focused approach, and I appreciate that, because it's difficult for many founders to get to that point in understanding that your product isn't for everyone. You have to niche it down. You have to understand the target use case and how the target customer is using your product ultimately, right? You know, Gerald, you touch on the feedback loop, and launching is obviously step one. But measuring the results, collecting the feedback, evaluating the data from that launch make up a very important second step in the entire process. So you mentioned kind of the 6 cognitive areas that you're evaluating from more of a business standpoint, whether that's sales, marketing, logistics, and fulfillment. What metrics are you guys looking at to really gauge the success of the launch, or how are you going about measuring and collecting that data? And what's your method for really sourcing feedback from customers on flavors, cognitive function, et cetera?
So I'll mention a couple things to start, and then Dad, you can support it if you'd like. But one important thing that we learned from Founder Institute is the value of A/B testing, and that's something that we actually started implementing well before we launched. As you know, we launched mid-December, but going back to September, we've been A/B testing on Facebook ads with different types of content into different types of interest groups, measuring the click-through rates, cost per acquisition, things like that, and then now the ROAS, return on ad spend. And those sorts of experiments have started to help us figure out where we're resonating. And I think my dad mentioned earlier, we're still one of the most important things for us in this quarter and next is pinning down our core customer profile as precisely as we possibly can. And we're not there yet, but we're getting there, and we're starting to see where we stick, what kind of things they're interested in, what are their kind of habits, and what content sticks with them. So that's been like a really important thing for us so far. And then obviously like reorder rate, reviews, social proof, testimonials, and things like that. And then another thing that you mentioned is post-purchase follow-up and things like that. And for us, it's trying to strike a really good balance of automating that and also personalizing it. So, we use a software, Klaviyo, that's good for kind of automating that email communication with our customers. It's been very effective for us, but it's very personalized. We're making that content ourselves up to this point. Now we brought in some support to help us scale it. And then also, with so many of our customers being people that are connected to the brand, we're engaging them personally. I mean, one of the really cool things that we did launch week is Jake, our marketing manager, and I got on the phone and called every one of our first 200 customers and asked them what size hoodie they wore. And we sent them a Breinfuel hoodie or a Breinfuel t-shirt, and just really locked in that initial first couple weeks of consumers as part of our tribe. And we do things like that on social media too. We do Brain Game Wednesdays where we throw up trivia and we reward winners with Breinfuel hats and banners and things like that. We do Brain Tip as well, where we record videos of Doc talking about the science of the product to speak to the education side. So that type of engagement that's sort of very differentiated from a typical beverage, especially in this kind of space where it's just branding, it's just sizzle. We want to lead with the cool, but also bake in the good of how does the product work, and actually getting them in the feeling like they're part of it with us from day one is really important.
I want to just throw in something that I think complements that analysis. We know the DNA of the product itself because we've used it for so long, right? Now the question becomes, what do we think is the right face of Breinfuel? Is it a UFC fighter? Is it a poker player? Is it CrossFit? You got to get it out there. And it's been really interesting to get it out there. We're looking at a senior golf tour kind of situation. We were looking at poker and they loved it. That's how that got started. A lot of gyms, people are trying it. It's just, pre-post workout kind of thing. So we know that there's this combination of a physical performance and sort of a locking in your brain, keeping it cool, kind of like, but, really ready to react. And you got to go for, will endurance athletes really like this, right? So we don't want to be everything to everybody, but we want to find out by letting people sample it and try it. And what we're not at the level where we're going to hire a macro influencer for money. Okay. They have to love the product. And so that's helping us target where to go with this product.
You guys have really touched on something that I think is very striking, given that you're in the CPG space, and that's this notion of building community, right? And people talk about that, I'd say, very frequently in SaaS or social media platforms, whatever it may be. But you don't often hear about it in the CPG space, right? As you talk about, Colton, it's a lot of branding, it's a lot of flash, ads, influencers. But you've really focused, and Gerald, you just spoke to it as well, on building this community, and it's far more than a simple advertisement or an influencer. It's really about getting someone bought into even the science and benefits piece of it, which is, I don't want to say it's a novel approach, but I feel like it is in some sense, and maybe I'm just not as knowledgeable about the space, but given the CPG, kind of drink space in this area, I feel like it really is a novel approach. And I would imagine it's really given, you that traction that has led to such a successful launch so far.
John, I would like to pretend that we're so brilliant. We've identified this great strategy, but believe me, we've talked to some people that came before us, some really famous brands that have exited. They're in Chicago, people we could talk to, and boy, did we pay attention. They proved their model. They found their target. Even if it was a niche group, they made sure that niche group liked the product, liked the label. And once they did that, that helped them get viral. That core group kept telling the story. By the time they went retail, they commanded their own margins. So we heard that more than once, and this is a mega success story that we've heard on a couple of occasions now. So people have come before us, that have kind of set, I think, a roadmap that's the right one for Breinfuel.
No, absolutely. And that's the beauty about working with, an accelerator program like FI, or really just being a part of such a small, closely knit, but supportive entrepreneurial community here in Chicago, right? We're not Silicon Valley. We're not, New York or the East Coast, but it's a very small, dedicated group that I find to be tremendously supportive. And I'm so glad to hear that that's been the case for you guys at Breinfuel as well. Executing a successful product launch is a lot like an IPO, right? For a new publicly traded company. And you really have to capitalize on the momentum that you create with the launch. So with that being said, what are your next steps to kind of keep the momentum going with Breinfuel, keep building that traction, and keep your, your sales revenue and overall community, strong and growing?
I think finding the right price point, getting the COGS to the ideal kind of velocity opportunity, making sure the flavor is spectacular, which I think we've pretty much done now. And I also think making our retail launch not only successful, but then scale it in the best way that works for us.
I would add two things onto that, but I definitely agree with everything that you said, Dad. I would say one thing on the scaling retail and distribution side is making the right revenue decisions, and that's something that when we first started, we had this dream of being in every store right away, and as we talked to more mentors and advisors, we realized we really did need to take a strategic approach to saying yes to the opportunities that we could support at scale. So that's one main thing, and then another lane that I think is really important, kind of related to finding our customer base, is also consolidating our marketing activity and our marketing spend. So right now, when you're establishing a brand and a really disruptive brand, there's a lot of activity going on. And I spoke to some of it with kind of the micro approach and the macro approach and paid ads and content creation and all these different things that are going on. And that's important when you're establishing the brand. And I'm glad that we did it. Now that we're starting to see what sticks and we're starting to analyze where we're getting ROI, we can start to kind of consolidate and be much more strategic with where we're putting our focus from a marketing standpoint so that it doesn't feel scattered. Because when you have a complex product, you don't want to confuse the marketplace, right? You want to be very, very clear and concise about what you're delivering, why it's valuable, what is the benefit here. So that's kind of what we're focused on the upcoming quarter or two, is making the right decisions, marketing wise, sales wise, and operationally getting our COGS down and building our team so that we're ready to really take off.
I would building the team, I think, really important. You got to have a great board. You have to have the people on your board that are substantial, that have contacts, that you can't fool. People that can really add business experience, open doors. We're fortunate that way. And the other thing is you want to look at what pieces do you still need to finish the chessboard for your company? What C-suite executive do you need to really be ready? And so we're in all of that interviewing process, meeting some really great people and trying to finish the team. Very important.
Oh, absolutely. And really, as you touched on, Gerald, the board, in a lot of ways, those are your early advocates, right? Those are the early leaders of your tribe and your community that, are able to help build some of that momentum towards a successful launch and keep it going, right? And open the doors, help get in with strategic partners and pilots and such. And, the team becomes an extension of that, right?
John, this is one of the things that I find interesting. You look at a lot of successful brands in the CPG side, a lot of them languished for 4 years before they took off. It's not uncommon, to kind of have not a lot of traction for several years and then take off. I think if we're more strategic and careful at the beginning, we will be able to accelerate our growth sooner.
That's a really interesting point, Gerald. And it seems to touch and connect to what Colton was saying about kind of consolidated, focused marketing activities as well, right? Not just throwing a budget at something, but doing it in a really effective way at both a micro and macro level to build content organically, build a community organically. And then, as more revenue comes in, you can scale on top of that, right? It's not just kind of like when, Coke or Pepsi or a major CPG brand launches a new drink and they're able to just put a massive ad budget behind it. So it seems like much more of a grassroots, but more sustainable approach that I would imagine would accelerate that timeline that you just mentioned.
Agree.
Yep.
So guys, this has been a tremendous discussion on product launches. Want to finish off with our very fun 3-question grand finale. So this is the good stuff. These are the extra credit questions, right? But for each of you, what's been your favorite moment working with Breinfuel thus far? Has there been 1 or 2 moments that have really stood out to each of you where you either felt like this is it, or maybe it was launch day or Christmas Eve? But
you got to let me go first, Colton.
Go for it.
I cannot help this. This is the greatest opportunity in the world for a father to work with his son. I just can't. There is no financial component that equals how my son crushes it and helps me. And it's a fantastic ride.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I mean, it's definitely been a lifelong dream that we've talked about before, and in all of the things that each of us have done and in our careers and when I was in school too, like we've always been very in touch and in tune with what each other are doing and trying to support and help however we can. And it's been great to be able to partner like this in this kind of capacity. And I also think that while we're talking about it, I think we're very good partners in an interesting way that I think could be valuable for anybody listening who has a co-founder or is looking for a co-founder, is having a combination of a visionary, idea person and somebody that can execute boots on the ground and implement. And I think we have a really good combination there where, I really view my responsibility in a certain sense as executing my dad's vision for the product and the company. And I just try to do that the best I can every day. And as far as like a highlight of our experience so far, the final product was obviously amazing to really see that like delivered. And like I said, on Christmas Eve, it was really special. And we got it the same day as everybody else. So that was really exciting. But the final samples that we got from the flavor house, which was the first time that we had actually gotten like flavored product in cans. At that point, they were aluminum cans. When we got those samples in our cool branded packaging, we were just having a party. I mean, we were so excited that this concept of a cerebral beverage that we had, a year ago had materialized into something that you could actually hold in your hand and drink and feel the effects of. And that was just a pretty special feeling, I think.
And also there's a lot of complexity to the product, yet it comes out so smooth. And the process by which, the science by which it is batch mixed and the flavor house communicates it's like a formulation. And to watch it on a mass scale being produced, that was really a beautiful experience.
Oh, I can only imagine. I mean, being able to actually hold your vision in your hand, right? In Breinfuel packaging, with the flavors that you've worked so hard to develop, with the right ingredients, um, I'm sure there's just something so tremendously rewarding about that.
I had a guy who's my age, who's really a grinder, loves to work out, and his arthritis is killing him. And this is not intended as any claim for Breinfuel, okay? But probably one of the highlights of my Breinfuel career here is he's a private equity guy, and we got a text from him through my buddy who's on our board, who said, "How did you create this holy water?" I'm a physician. It's still about trying to make it something that does something good. That was like, come on. I never expected that, right? So that to me is, kind of, that's my hope that people can have that kind of experience when they need it.
I'm still waiting on the day when I run into a stranger who happens to be holding a Breinfuel that they got somewhere and I could take a selfie with them. I think that's going to be a pretty cool experience too.
Well, Colton, I think that day is coming soon if you get tremendous traction. So you'll have your moment in your stuffy pretty soon. No, that's tremendous stuff, guys.
Hey, a shout out to FI, by the way. FI was a great place for us to start. It was really fun learning how bad I was at a pitch. Trying to tell the entire I tried to tell the entire pharmaceutical story in 30 seconds on my first few pitches. And I'll never forget, one of the mentors said, Steve Jobs used to have one word on every slide. And I went back and looked at those videos, and it's true. And I had to paper every slide. And it's like, Ross, I owe you.
It's so true, though. The Founder Institute provides you with that structure and that supportive community to do some pretty incredible things as a startup. And, I'm very grateful for them. I'm grateful that's been able to connect me with both of you, and certainly continues to do so for future generations of founders as well.
The fastest 40 minutes I've experienced in a while.
Yeah, great conversation.
So just a couple more questions here before we leave off. But in what ways have you personally grown the most through this experience? And have there been certain areas in which you really feel like it's taken you either personally or professionally to kind of a new level in your life or your career?
Look, frankly, I am unashamedly an unabashed inventor, okay, and a creator. And I have a line extension of 4 different things I'd like to do. It's almost like being a straitjacket for me to have to fill out a form and have to really have the discipline to do the stuff that's not fun, right? But that's what it takes. So, I'm happy to do it. But that is the growing curve for me. That's the growth curve for me. Be the CEO, be an example, help lead, help provide direction. That's really, I don't have to have that lane. I have that lane as a LASIK surgeon for my team. This is on a whole different scale. So for me, that's a real growth opportunity. And when you do that, for me to not get caught in trying to brand the product too much. Be natural, be real. I think is the pandemic's helped that. Being real and natural is really important, and that's who we are anyway. So anyway, that's been a learning experience for me that I'm really benefiting from.
Yeah, I'd echo that. For me, it's kind of, there's a lot of ways I've grown, but 2 that come to mind are, one, from an organizational standpoint. When I was, growing up in school, I was never organized, never keep track of my assignments, things like that. But over time, I, started to have to get more organized with things that I would get excited about. And now, I've gone through 4 or 5 different planners since I've started with Breinfuel, and filling out every page of every planner, day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, what I'm working on, what are my priorities, personal, Breinfuel, fitness, etc. Really just managing the opportunity cost of my time, putting time in my schedule to relax, to be balanced, to feed my mind. And that definitely has helped me level up on a lot of ways, like physically, mentally. And then another way I would say is like from an emotional standpoint, my dad mentioned being authentic is a really big part of our team. And that's kind of one of our and my leadership philosophies is radical candor and just being like fully, truthfully, unapologetically yourself, and being able to balance that and empower the entire team to be like that while also being able to keep your cool and represent the brand, in a classy way. When things are constantly, feels like things are burning down at the same time that you're being successful, because that's the nature of a startup. So being able to balance how much you care and want something with also being able to keep your cool and be on top of your game has been a good challenge for me to grow.
Any college kids that might be listening to this, a lot of our team came from vector marketing. It means they sold Cutco knives. And my son crushed it. He set a national sales record. He hired 120 reps because over a couple years, he learned as much there as he did at Northwestern, in my opinion. And some of the other guys that came on board who are also record setting at vector, I'd hire them in my LASIK practice if they wanted to go there, but their talents go way past that. I think there's a DNA here that you can achieve to help you, I think, become more entrepreneurial. It's surprising, actually. It's right there in front of these kids, and a lot of them are finding it. So I think we're benefiting from some really good grinding. And when Colton said he's organized, you have no idea.
Well, I have to say, guys, I mean, Gerald, your energy and your passion, your enthusiasm are really infectious. And that's not just me saying that, that's several other people in the Founder Institute and broader community. And Colton, both I have tremendous respect, and other people have tremendous respect for your work ethic, your organization, and ultimately your marketing talent at such a young age. The two of you together are really a power dynamic, and it's certainly supported, and it's tremendously powerful that it's a father-son duo, right? And who's really working to execute this. So it's tremendous to have an opportunity to speak with both of you. And my final question, and perhaps the most important one of all, what is each of your favorite flavors?
God, that's a good question, man. Colton, what do you think?
I don't have to think about it long. I mean, it's Victory Bliss. It's our peach mango. I think it's the best tasting beverage I've ever had in my life, and I don't think I'm biased.
You know what? Now that I tweaked Thrive Ice and Alpha Punch, they're equal to me, all three of them. But I want to throw a shout out to our Founder Institute cohorts when we did this. There's a lot of talented people going through there, and it's really challenging, a lot of great ideas. And it's not easy to find that early seed money. It's just not easy. So I will always have or feel a connection to hopefully be supportive if we're successful. And I think we're going to be successful. And recognize, everyone's opportunity starts at a different place. And some great ideas are just waiting to explode here that started at FI.
Absolutely. And it certainly seems like the very next one that's already doing so well is Breinfuel. So guys, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Everyone at home is really excited. For more information on Breinfuel, obviously check out breinfuel.com. Take a look at the Shopify store. Get every flavor because it sounds like they're all terrific. I know I certainly will be. Or email us at founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io and enjoy this drink. Guys, enjoy the ride. You're off to a tremendous start and cannot wait to see where you take it in the future.
Hey, John, it's BREINFUEL.com.
There you have it, everyone. Thanks so much again. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Colton.
Thank you.
We'll definitely be having you on the show again soon. Everyone, thanks so much for listening today and looking forward to having you join us for another episode of the Founders Trust Podcast.
Great.
Today, we're focusing on a free tool that you should be using anytime you're launching or testing a new release of a product. While building a buzz around your latest offering is one big component of your launch, collecting data and feedback to evaluate how successful the launch really was is just as, if not more, important. You need to know exactly how people are interacting with your offering and the information you're presenting to them. This includes capturing info on how people are interacting with your website, where they're clicking, how long they're staying on certain pages, and ultimately when they're leaving your site. In short, you need a website heat mapping tool. Crazy Egg was one of the first heat mapping tools to hit the market, and they continue to be one of the best solutions out there. They offer a terrific 30-day free trial, which gives you plenty of time to use their features to track all of your initial launch data. You'll have access to their heat mapping tool, recordings of how users are clicking through your site, unlimited A/B testing, ad campaign tracking, and a whole lot more. So I highly recommend you go to crazyegg.com and sign up for their free 30-day trial just prior to your next product launch. And let me know what you think. Comment on our social media or send us an email at founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io. Now go get building.